Well, no, I mean, nothing. It doesn't matter how many friends you have. I don't think it's easy to move to New York.
It's not logistically,
even if you're like
emotionally.
even if you're like famous and like you're a star and you're really, I don't think it's easy for anyone.
So it seems to me like a lot of us Midwesterners, I'm from Illinois, so I'll put myself in the Midwest too. A lot of us move from the Midwest to, I feel like usually New York City, right? But you went the other route. You went to the West Coast. So I was just wondering what specifically made you want to move to the Bay Area. Was it school?
Yeah, I just liked how I didn't get into Columbia University. Like, thank God, in retrospect. But I did get into this other school that I really liked, which was UC Santa Cruz.
Nice.
So, that was it. It was just the admissions department sort of made the decision for me. And then it was a really lucky decision because UC Santa Cruz has a great music department. And I met my percussion teacher, Willie Wynant, there, whose influence sort of really guided my future path. And there was a drum set teacher there, also George Marsh, who's like fantastic, amazing drummer.
Yeah.
And he was like my first real drum teacher. So I was kind of a late bloomer and didn't, wasn't doing jazz, wasn't doing music seriously before college.
Really?
So I'm really glad I was in California, where it's like sort of much more laid back and not this like intense competition. And if I had gone to New York, I don't even know who knows if I would have been a musician. I wasn't planning on doing music when I went to California. It's a decision I made after I got there.
Really? So I'm just curious, what did you go to study?
I don't know. I was just like
get out of
I was like,
Nebraska.
maybe I'll do like, I was like, maybe I'll study Shakespeare or maybe physics or maybe, I didn't know. Or maybe like pre-law or something. I was like just turned 18 when I started college. I didn't know what I was going to do.
Okay. Yeah, I always think, just a small side tangent. Now that I look back on it, I feel like 18 is such a young age to make such a huge quote unquote decision and spend a shit ton of money, assuming you don't get scholarships or any kind of help. So it's like, I respect that you just went and it sounds like you kind of fell into music. Well,
I like always loved music, and there were some musicians in my family. But I always thought like, it's going to be way too much work. It's too hard. And I didn't do it when I was younger, except for sort of casually piano lessons and stuff. But then I took a, beginning music theory class there from this guy, Paul Nauert, who's like a music theorist who was fantastic, who was from New York, actually. And I loved that class, and he was really encouraging. And he's like, you're good at this. You should keep doing it. And that was kind of, then I decided, well, I'd rather work hard on this because the process is fun versus the process of researching and studying is like less fun. It's for me.
Yeah.
So
you just wanted to have fun with what you're putting all this time and effort into. It sounds like.
Practicing music and studying music is fun.
That's awesome. I totally didn't know that about you. So I'm assuming you spent your 4 full years there and graduated from there.
Yeah.
And then did you stay in the Bay Area?
Yeah, then because William Wynant, amazing percussionist and sort of muse for a lot of, late 20th century composers. And he said, man, you should go to Mills College, where he taught also in Oakland, California. Mills College, and first the San Francisco Tape Music Center, and were like incubators for avant-garde music. For a long time. Anyway, Willie was like, come there. And so I went there to study more with him. And it was there I got to play with Marianne Amiche, with Cecil Taylor was there for 2 weeks, who I played with every night for 2 weeks in a large ensemble and then small ensembles. And then in a concert with him, like in a small group.
Jeez.
And Wadado Leo Smith also. And then I was in the Bay until 2013, basically.
Okay. So hold on, I got to back up because Cecil Taylor, I feel like you and I are probably a similar age, same generation. I feel like a lot of people our age would never have the opportunity to play with Cecil Taylor. Like, what was your biggest takeaway from that experience?
Well, his practice, when he was at Mills, he was an artist in residence for 2 weeks. The room that he was practicing in had this like Buzendorfer piano, and it was next door to the percussion studio. So, he would go in there for like 5 or 6 hours a day and practice just like for hours on end. And so listening to him practice and how he practiced was like a big takeaway. It was like he was performing, and then he would isolate cells and, he would give these pitch sets, strings of pitch sets that would be sort of in an order, and he would tell people to go through them, and you could hear him when he was practicing sort of isolate those, experiment with them, like move some notes around, and then he would like blow, basically.
Wow.
But just the power of it, sitting next to him and like, just the stamina and power of his playing was like, I think about that all the time. And we were like young kids playing with him after the rehearsals every night. We would play for like 2 or 3 hours after rehearsal. And you got, he would be bringing in like champagne. I think there was probably some drugs coming in too. And this is in the concert hall, and we would just be in there until 1 or 2 in the morning. And we'd play for maybe 2 or 3 hours. And every night, you could sense that, he could tell that the kids were sort of running out of energy. And then he would wind it down for like a half hour.
Winding it down.
Yeah, every time. I mean, he was so powerful. He could go on. It seemed like he could go on forever. And
that's amazing. Do you think that was the drugs or that was just Cecil Taylor?
No, just Cecil Taylor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So after Mills College, right? Is that when you next came to New York after that experience?
Yeah.
And how did you know it was time to go to New York?
Well, I never learned another language. My grandpa spoke a bunch of languages, but like a lot of Americans, there's plenty of Americans who do speak other languages, but a lot of us don't.
Nope.
And I always really wanted to. At a certain point in the Bay Area, I think when I was 29, I was kind of like, I need to do this now or it's never going to happen. I re-enrolled in the bachelor's program in French at San Francisco State University and went to Paris for a year. And so then I really was taking a break from music, even though I was doing some playing there. And I met Irene there, who's my wife, who's Finnish.
Okay.
And we fell in love. And a few years later, we decided to get married. And she was like, let's move to New York.
Okay.
And so that was just her intuition, I think, how to help me sort of, realize what I needed to realize or... And she's always excited for an adventure too. So
love it.
Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. That did not go how I expected. I don't know what I expected. I don't think I've had a musician on the podcast yet where they're like, yeah, my partner, my wife, like it was them. Like,
yeah, I'm
that's pretty cool.
I'm not 100%. I hope I would have made the decision anyway. I was obviously like, kind of aware of the necessity to do it in order to realize the stuff I wanted to do. But I'm not, I hadn't gotten there yet. I'm not sure if I would have made the decision on my own or not. I hope I would have. Did
you have musician friends already in New York?
Yeah.
Did that make it easy to?
Well, no, I mean, nothing. It doesn't matter how many friends you have. I don't think it's easy to move to New York.
It's not logistically,
even if you're like famous and like you're a star and you're really, I don't think it's easy for anyone. New York dominates the whole landscape, as it should with jazz because of its relationship to Caribbean immigrants and it's sort of like destination for blacks from like the South and around the country is like a, sort of the place where black music was like, in a certain sense, like came to its full bloom. But nonetheless, you have to go there. And so there's a constant pipeline and yeah, Chess Smith was a big, sort of mentor to me in the Bay Area. He really helped me see how to do things. And he moved several years before I did. Matt Nelson, who plays on the record that I'm here to talk about, is a good friend of mine, and he moved several years before.
We're definitely going to hit on your new album, Blight Music. But you just mentioned you're coming back to New York. So when did you move to Finland?
June of 22.
Okay. So like right after the COVID craziness.
Yeah. We like did the pandemic in New York with the portable morgues like on the street and at the bottom of our block and like did that, and then kind of got an offer we couldn't refuse in Finland, close to her parents, who I really adore, and she's close with them, obviously. So this goes back to the language thing a little bit. Since my wife's Finnish, it's really important to me that I learn Finnish, and so I've been studying it off and on for years. But it's a really hard language, and I kind of knew I was never going to learn it if I didn't go there. So I was like, okay, well, this is now the time to do that.
Be immersed in it.
Yeah. And try to be immersed in it. It's hard even there to immerse yourself in it because the Finnish cultural sort of personality and stuff. But, I'm trying, and it's slowly progressing.
Yeah. What's it like there in terms of music scene in general? Is there a lot? Like, I'm totally ignorant. Is there a jazz scene there?
Yeah, there is. It's a small country. It's about 5.5 million people. There's a jazz scene. There's, for a small country, you could say there's a pretty active and vibrant jazz scene. That being said, it's in Scandinavia, and they sort of have their own version of what that is.
Okay.
And it can feel fairly disconnected from what that is here in New York, for example. At the same time, there are some really great players, and there's really open audiences, and there is an audience that comes out to see stuff. And they're, just really accepting, and maybe sometimes a little too accepting, you know what I mean? Like you can get away with a lot.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, right when I moved there, I met this guy, Mikko Innanen. He's like an incredible sax player, and he used to come to New York a lot. And we met right when I got there, and he started hiring me for stuff.
Oh, nice!
And so that was great. And then this is actually thanks to Olli Hirvonen, the guitarist on this record, also with Raul Björkenheim, another guitarist on this record.
Yeah,
was Olli's teacher, and he's like a legend in Finland. He grew up in New York and LA, I think, and traveling around, and went to Berklee School of Music in the 70s, and sort of like a golden era at Berklee, I think. And, he's like really a master of timbre in the sort of classic, like 20th century, like guitar hero fashion, stereo Marshall amps, huge pedal setup that can just navigate like beautifully, producing like the full array that you would want if you're like really an admirer of like what I would argue is kind of like the most important instrument of the 20th century or something, or the second half of it at least. Yeah. It's like the electric guitar, So he's amazing. I've been playing a lot with him. But like I said, the jazz scene there, it's really in this sort of like Nordic. There's a divide there between like this sort of Nordic free jazz thing,
Okay.
which is really drawing heavily on like the AACM and like the 60s, like the new thing kind of, and then there's on the other side of that divide, there's this like sort of really hardcore like conservative bebop thing going on there, and the guy who runs the jazz department at Sibelius Academy is like a drummer, and he's really hardcore. I've heard about like, no, you have to just study bebop, and the thing that none of them on either side of that divide seem to really understand is that like in New York, sure, there's those divisions, but kind of everybody has to play everything a little bit more, and in my experience, all of the best players consider all that stuff like an equal part of the canon, and they draw on it at all times. I just did. I'm not religious, but by the grace of God, I just did a tour with John Arabigon's quartet. His writing is like a case in point. He's like drawing on all of it all the time, and it's awesome. And it's not like it's like Stravinsky. Like you have access to all these rooms, that have happened before, and you should use them. Whereas in Finland, there's this really like you're either doing this or you're doing that.
How do you navigate that?
Well, I don't. I had 2 kids when I got there.
Okay.
And I've been at home kind of like not navigating it.
Okay. Okay.
No, I mean, I try, I could barely get a gig. Actually, for this band, right when I moved, I got a great gig, kind of a good paying, visible gig. And then right after that, a right-wing government got elected and like slashed the cultural funding like 60% or something. And so all the gigs just like fell off. I understand it. They cut the funding. And so it's like, well, like the new guy from the US who has a band of half like New York players is not going to get like the, they like keep it, which I totally respect.
Right.
Like I haven't been there. I haven't paid any dues there or anything like, so things move slow there. It's in the ice ages. There were these big glaciers,
literally
like slow moving.
Yeah.
And so it's taken, I'm still breaking onto the scene there. It's like takes forever.
Wow.
But I'm really grateful for the people who have hooked me up there. This guy, Matti Lappalainen, who runs the April Jazz Festival. Mikko Inninen has hired me for a bunch of stuff. This guy, Jukka Kääriäinen's an awesome guitar player I've been playing with a lot. Raoul Björkenheim. We're playing a festival this summer together. This group, Equally Stupid, with Siggy Ronvaldsen. Sorry, Siggy, I totally can't remember how to say your last name. And,
you're just you're killing it with I
forgot how to say Siggy's last name.
My last name's Bjorklund, and I just butcher it every day. So.
No, that's how you say it. I think Bjorklund, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, little loons on the ends.
Pauli Lutunen, the sax player in that group. I mean, these guys have hooked me up, so I'm really grateful. But yeah, I haven't been like hustling super hard because I have 2 little kids, and I've been taking care of them. And but the other thing I was going to say about the music scene in Finland is that unlike the jazz scene, the classical music scene there is like paradigm of greatness, basically, especially for a country that small. Like, because they were sandwiched between the East and the West during the Cold War, and they couldn't align themselves with either one, they had to really sort of chart their own path and sort of forge their own identity. And classical music was like an important part of that. And also after the Civil War that they had around the time of Russian independence, a few years after that, radio became really big, and their big composer at the time, Sibelius, started being played on the radio all over Europe, and his music got really well known, and it turned out to be super great. And like his violin concerto is still kind of like the best one or something. It's like, I know nothing about classical music. It's a controversial statement maybe, but no, it's like really one of the best ones in the canon. various elements that Finland incorporated to sort of use as like soft power and represent themselves to Europe, like, and prove that they're not just like some backwoods, country, that they have like real sophistication, and they have like a rich history of classical composers, conductors, and players who are like on the world stage, and it's disproportionate for a country that small to have such representation. It's really great because in Finland, classical music is like a living art form. It's not like here where it's kind of a either super elite, niche, avant-garde art form, or like a dead sort of zombie like art form that's being kept marching along by like the Koch brothers and funding from like the worst parts of society, like who, they want to launder their reputations through their donations to the arts and through their philanthropy, which amounts to like, like a fart of their worth, and they feel bad about like causing so much cancer, so they donate money to cancer research and all this shit, and they keep like the arts, like the classical music, like, so New York classical music has like some of the most conservative programming, like it's just Beethoven, and like, I mean, I know they do other stuff, but for example, I went to see Kaija Saariaho, one of the great Finnish composers, opera at the Met, L'amour de loin, like Love from Afar, her like famous opera, modern opera, incredible. I went to see it at the Met with this great conductor, I forget her name, but fits right into the identity politics line of like the New York Times and everything, that there was like a female conductor, that's probably why the concert happened anyway, and a female composer. I mean, there's like no such thing at the Met. And so it was like this big event. The place emptied out by like half at the intermission. And I literally heard these like pearl clutching like heiresses being like, I didn't hear a single bit of melody in there, did you? And like they like left.
Wow.
But in Finland, like classical music's like a living art form. Even people who don't particularly care about classical music are aware of it, know who the composers are, know who the current composers and conductors and musicians are. So it's really special in that way.
It sounds like it's really formed that their classical music has formed part of their national identity.
Totally has.
Yeah.
And it's like really how they proved their, themselves kind of to Europe first and then to the world. Like,
I had no idea. I think not to get on a huge tangent, but the most interesting thing that just came up for me as you're discussing that is how the opposites are between Finland in respect to how they're a little more not strict but bifurcated with the jazz, and they're so far ahead, it sounds like, with classical music. And then the United States, especially New York, it's like conservative classical, jazz, like literally anything goes. So I'm going to take a total left turn. Okay. Well, maybe it's a right turn. Maybe. Let's talk about your album.
Okay.
All right. So, like I said earlier, you're here for I would call it the American release show.
Yeah.
And I realized I got a little confused because on this album, obviously it's you. On bass, you have Tim Dahl, right? Now on this, I would call them your Finnish counterparts aren't all here, right? So on the album you have Mikko, I'm gonna butcher his name, Mikko,
well, he's played in the band, Mikko Innanen.
Okay.
He's played in the band. We did a short tour, so he's played in the band in Finland, but unfortunately, he's not on the record.
Okay, so it's Nick Lyons?
Yeah.
And Matt Nelson on tenor?
Yeah.
Am I got that right? And they're going to be at the show?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. And then obviously Matt Mitchell.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And then Ollie, I'm going to pronounce his name wrong again. Hervonen?
Yeah, that's how, yeah.
That's how a Midwestern says it.
No, that's how I think he's even maybe, I don't know, he's had to adapt Olli Hirvonen or Hervonen, but in Finnish it's Olli Hirvonen. But yeah.
Ollie. Yeah, I say Ollie like the like super Midwestern. But yeah, tell me how you came up with this lineup, how you chose these players, like walk me through it.
My Right Angles in 2019 was my first band album as a band leader, and with Kim Cass and Matt Mitchell. Mm-hmm. And that was music that I had been working on basically for around 10 years, I would say, in constant sort of communication with Kim Cass. And it involved an approach to learning to play polyrhythms or polyrhythmic structures, polyrhythmic, how to learn and play these polyrhythms that we were interested in. And when I'm saying polyrhythms, I mean rhythmic ratios between like two different pulses. So like 2 against 3 being one, the triplet pulse, and 3 against 4. But then when you go into like other prime numbers, the 5s, so 5 against 2, 5 against 3, 4, 5 against 6, 5 against 7, 8, 9, 5 against 11, etc. Well, I kind of have stopped at the 11s. And then 7, the next prime. So the same process with all those. And then, 8 and 9, these they're not prime numbers, so they kind of fit into a different category, or they are versions of 3 or 2 or whatever, and then the 11s. And so anyway, on Right Angles, I finally found in New York. Well, with Kim, I knew in the Bay Area, but then Chess Smith introduced me to Matt Mitchell, and Kim had started playing with Matt, and so Kim and Matt and I got together. I brought some of my music that I've been working on, and Matt was really interested in it right away. Anyway, all this is to answer the question about how I came up with this band and this instrumentation. And it's because I was very happy with the results of Right Angles, and the sort of realizations of those ideas that I got with the help of Kim and Matt, which I couldn't have done otherwise. They could play the stuff much better than I can. And I'm not being falsely modest there at all. I'm like a really late bloomer on the instrument, and those guys are like virtuosos. And I'm always just like making sure that I have enough to be able to be in the conversation. But so I guess that's a long way of saying that there's a whole aspect of my playing that wasn't on that record, and an aspect of music that I felt was missing a little bit, in spite of the fact that I'm like really thrilled with the results of it. And that was the kind of like the feeling like you're throwing it all out there and throwing it all away, and the feeling of total abandon that you want to see, like when you go see like Alvin Ailey or something, and it looks like maybe they're out of control, but they're not.
It's very controlled.
It's very controlled, but it looks like totally free, and it has that joyous sort of like abandon and celebration. Like we're gonna be joyful no matter what, and like and the feeling of sort of Tony Williams. You always feel like he's you always feel like it's going off the rails, you know, and
in the best possible way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I played in a rock band. I played in a rock band for years called Enablers with this guy, Joe Goldring, and the other guitarist, Kevin Thompson. Those are the two guitar players. Pete Simonelli is the vocalist in that group who does spoken word and this like amazing voice. And but Joe and Kevin wrote these amazing. They don't have music training, but they wrote all these amazing tunes and odd meters that just really flow. And then the drums just get to like flow over them and just go crazy but hit the marks and stuff. But it's really just this flowing textures. And I've played that, and with Ava Mendoza, I met Tim Dahl, and that was like basically a rock band. And so anyway, that energy and that sort of power of like rock music, or the sort of abandon of like a lot of jazz that I love at its best, when it feels free, I felt was a little bit missing from Right Angles, because we were really doing an exposition of new ideas. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Of course, we took risks and we weren't like precious about it, but it's still, at least for me as a drummer, I wasn't free yet to just like go nuts. This band, Blight Music, and this record, and the idea behind it was basically to like do something a little opposite in a way, use some of the polyrhythm stuff, but in a way that could be presented to non-specialist players who I love, who are way more into just like swagger and like just throwing down and kind of letting it all hang out and just playing and like harnessing that energy of forward momentum and abandon and joyousness, I have to say. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I sort of picked the band and came up with the concept so that I could sort of study that and be in that, so that when I go back to follow up Right Angles, which there's a follow up coming eventually, of an sort of development and expansion of those ideas, I'll hopefully be able to include this feeling in it.
Yeah.
And so Tim Dahl, I met through Ava Mendoza. We played in her trio Unnatural Ways for many years and toured a lot, and he became a ally, And Matt Nelson, I go way back with, to the Bay Area. Nick Lyons, also, who's like an incredible alto player I've been friends with for many years, who I also met in the Bay Area, even though I didn't know him when he lived there. And then Matt Mitchell, and Olli Hirvonen I'd done some playing with because his friend Brian Kroc hired me for some gigs, and so I knew that Olli could he can play whatever. He's really, really good.
Yeah.
And then plus I knew I was going to be moving to Finland, so I was like, well, Olli's going to help introduce me to the Finnish scene. That's the story basically.
Very cool.
With where
I love that. It's like an evolution. You started with a trio on Right Angles, and then you went to a sextet, but also not just that, it's the feeling. I hate saying vibe, but it's a vibe of when you're playing also. So I have a nerdy technical question. Since you're a drummer and band leader, when you take your ideas to a band, say this new band, the band's name is Expressive Olympics, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So my question was, as a drummer / band leader, when you're giving this music to Expressive Olympics, did you have like thorough composed charts, or did you do like more of a vocal kind of tradition? Like, here's what I'm doing, or just sketch out sections? Like, what's your process like?
No, there's charts for all the songs. And one of them was like, not a graphic score, but like one of them was like an improv score, like, with instructions on it and stuff and some rules, sort of like a rules based piece. That one wound up being called Salvador Dal because it was a kind of like a concerto for an improviser. So there's like one person who's the soloist and the rest of the ensemble is like are accompanists, and they have like a limited set of things that they can do as accompanists. So that was like the sort of text piece that had these rules. But yeah, all of the music was written.
Yeah. Because it seems like it would be complex. Like, I don't know if I'm a late bloomer, but when it gets into polyrhythms and stuff like that, I get a little nervous and scared, and it like blows my mind, and I see it written down and I get even more scared.
Oh, yeah. Well, okay. So there's not that much polyrhythmic stuff on this record. The two tunes that have a lot of, well, it's not even that much, but there's the tune, the title track, Blight music, is in 4/4, most of it. But it's just the beat subdivision of the 4/4 is a quintuplet subdivision. So not a 16th note subdivision. So that has a different feel. And then the melody over that quintuplet subdivision sort of dances across different polyrhythmic ratios related to 5. So there's a 5/2 in a couple of places in the melody, and a 5/3, and I think also a 5/4. But they don't really jump out. It's you just, because it's a melody that's kind of singable style melody.
Yeah.
And then also the melody that what they're reading is just it looks pretty normal. It doesn't look polyrhythmic. There's ties and stuff. But then the second section of the piece, like the B section, has like a polyrhythmic structure to it. Basically, it's 5/3 happening the whole time, and the horn players have a grouping of 5/3 that they play their backgrounds in, and then that they have a line that they play, and they didn't need to know the polyrhythm though. They just have to listen to the ride cymbal.
Yeah.
Because the ride cymbal is giving it. And so it's like there's no pressure on them to like study and be comfortable with 5/3 or something,
Nice.
And that one's an easy one to feel anyway, because it has like a triplet feeling to
more
it.
Natural.
Yeah, you could say just more familiar. The ride cymbal just gives that pulse to them, and the drums are playing both parts, and so all they have to do is just sort of use that as just normal time, and that's their time, and it was totally easy, no problem. So that was another like aspect that I wanted to get experience with as a band leader or something, is like, okay, I want to make sure next time, I want to have specialists involved, but I also want to be able to have people who are non-specialists. I want to write in a way that I can include them easily, and they can just, use the incredible skills that they already have to do what they do, in a context of like a polyrhythmic structure or something. The other tune called The Sower, that's just that's kind of similar. It's got a melody that's in 4/4, sort of medium swing melody, like, and then underneath it, the bass and drums are going in a, I guess, 10/4. So it's a 5/2 sort of time going through the whole thing. And again, that wasn't hard for the horn players at all. Like they don't have to really know the thing, you know. We just sort of get them comfortable with that medium feel, and then when Tim and I start playing the fast 10 underneath it, it doesn't matter. They just sort of stay in their time and we're in ours, and it just goes, and it's really nice.
You're talking about how you have you wrote out a little different for each version of the band in Finland, in the United States. How different are the bands? How are they the same? Like, obviously different people are going to have different outcomes, but
well, I haven't been able to get enough gigs together with enough money to be able to bring Matt Mitchell. So he hasn't been in the version of the band in Europe ever. But Tim Dahl is in Europe all the time. So he's been and then his sound and his energy in our rhythm section playing together is kind of like a core. It's the core element of the band. So he's in both the New York and Europe version, I guess you could say. Raoul Björkenheim, the guitarist, lives in Finland, so he's in the band there. And Mikko Innanen is there, so he's in the band there. And then Jeremy Viner lives in Berlin. So like Tim, it's relatively affordable for me to bring him for stuff. So that's like the sort of European version of the band. Actually, for the gigs in Berlin, though, since Michael Attias is there, I've used him for the shows in Berlin. I've done a couple shows in Berlin, and he's been on both of those. And then Rieko Okuda on piano in Berlin, who's like really incredible. So anyway, it's like a Frankenstein version of the band, different one in Finland, different one in Berlin, and then like the New York version, which is kind of like the main or the original, you know, concept version of the band.
Very cool. So yeah, it's just different flavors, I guess, of the same concepts, but you and Tim kind of are the the center, the core sort of.
Yeah, that free flowing sort of time feel and that feeling of abandon. That's, you know, Tim and I have a good sort of hook up on bass and drums to convey that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, Tim, I don't know how, you know, if you've listened to him very much, but he's really unique in the world, bass player. And since we live in the age of like almost total conformity where you're not supposed to be an original anymore, sometimes it works against you, but, you know, or people are afraid, you know, people who like do like really crazy new stuff, sometimes people don't know what to do with it. But then you do get lucky and have some people know what to do with it, like Lydia Lunch, you know, had featured him in her band for like years, which gave him a great stage to sort of project from. But he's like a total original on the electric bass. That's kind of like the element of the band that I can't change whether or not it's wherever it's happening, you know.
I love that. That's kind of one of the themes. I don't know if it's intentional of not only this podcast, but also our label, Birch Grove Media, is musicians. Yeah, it's jazz, but you can't just pigeonhole them. And, you know, whether it's someone with more of like a metal feel like Ryan Clackner we've had on a few times, or that's why I'm looking forward to seeing Tim play in your band, because it's hard to pigeonhole him. And that's a
Yeah.
good thing. But
Yeah.
I, like to hear he's got like the jazz chops too. That's awesome. And he can walk and fretless. There's not enough fretless players these days either.
It sounds really good, the walking on fretless, and I think he uses like this sub octave for the tunes that are like that are swinging or have sort of that kind of feel. I think he uses this sub octave pedal a little bit to it gives like a little more body, and it gives a little more of the sort of feeling of like an upright somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It makes like the note on the bass feel a little bit wider somehow, with a little more just like
balls.
Well, so yeah, but
resonance,
no,
yeah,
just,
but it's not even
that sort of like indescribable, like the on the upright,
Yep.
like the note is like really big and long, kind of, and so somehow it gets that.
That's talent to be able to replicate that on an electric.
Well, timbre gets sacrificed, I think, a lot in jazz, especially I would say in like white jazz. Sorry, my
shots
white
fired.
brothers, but no, just because I feel like in the white jazz world, there's a lot of intellectualization of the music that happens, and that's fine because that's a super interesting part of the music. You know, there is a huge intellectual component to it, and if that's your thing, that's great. You know, that's fine, and you can go. You can live in that universe, and you cannot focus on timbre that much. That's an option. I think it's an option that alienates audience a little bit. But I think the proof is in the pudding on that.
I call that accounting jazz.
Sure. But Tim's like not that. He's a polar opposite of that. Like his timbral game, for lack of a better word, is just massive, and it's like so many different sonic textures and that are in play at any given time. It's like incredible, and that's why like people who are truly hip like Tyshawn are like want to play with him, you know what I mean, like because it's like one of a kind, and you want to interact with that. So
you hit on Lydia Lunch for a second there. That sentence came out wrong, but you know what I mean. But
if watch out if you're gonna do that. Watch out.
And you and Tim Dahl too. And you played trio with them, correct? You toured with them.
Yeah.
On and off. Is that still a thing?
Well, basically, Lydia hired me for her band Retrovirus with Tim. Right before the pandemic happened. I was supposed to do a tour to Australia with her, but that fell through. And then I did do Mexico City with her before the pandemic with Retrovirus, with Weasel Walter and Tim. And then after the pandemic was sort of like ending, we had a tour, and I was like the new drummer for that band. And then the Finland opportunity came up, and so I moved to Finland, and I lost that gig. It's one of the regrets I have about leaving New York. But Lydia and I became friends, and so we're still friends. And I brought her to Finland for a short tour for 4 dates. She's opening at the show at New Blue, which by the time anybody hears this will have been in the past. But
we'll put some clips in.
Yeah,
still some clips.
The night running off. I like the night running off. Dawn slowly blisters.
At the beginning of the pandemic, this warehouse, all the other musicians, we had gotten like a sort of illegal eviction notice. And so all the musicians moved out of the rehearsal space, but I kind of knew it was illegal. And so I didn't move out, I stayed. And so then as the pandemic began in full swing, I basically had this giant warehouse space to myself.
Sick.
And Tim Dahl, had an idea then, he's got a lot of great ideas. He realizes some of them, but it was, there's all this TV production crew. Everybody's laid off right now. Like nobody's working. He's like, we could do a show here. We could do a broadcast from this place, like once a week. We could do like a thing from like this warehouse, like David Sanborn style, like night music, but night like music. in the pandemic. And I was like, we could call it Blight music, because we're in this blighted warehouse. Like, if you want to see what the warehouse looked like, there's a video shot there by my friend Makoto and Niklas, my friends, these great videographers. They're actually lighting guys, so they did an amazing job lighting it. But with Kim Cass and Brandon Seabrook, we recorded a performance in there.
Wow.
In the middle of the warehouse, and you can see it's like you can't art direct that. It's just filled floor to ceiling with like bootleg stuff that the Israeli gangster, sort of mobster, low-level guy that used to be the landlord before he got kicked out of the country for assaulting the bailiff at his immigration hearing, just filled with years and years of his like junk, family heirlooms, and then also just like his, guys from Nostrin would be in there buying like clothes off of him for like 50 cents a pound or something, and he'd get these like second rate, clothes from like the sweatshops in like Central America that would maybe have flaws in them, and he would have just boxes and boxes and just rooms filled with like detritus and abandoned stuff, like anything you needed you could find if you were willing to dig for long enough.
That is wild.
And it's like, so anyway, there's a video shot in there that's really cool looking, and the music's good too, but you can see it's like a real blighted sort of place. I mean, it's like America's amazing. They'll just let their infrastructure just like fall apart.
I feel like what you're describing is like a scene from New York.
It's anachronistic. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally.
Oh, such a good word.
In June, around the time that we recorded this record, we did like a one-day festival at that warehouse.
Yeah.
Called it Blight Music. Matt Mitchell and Kate Gentile played. Brandon Lopez played.
Wow.
Tim Dahl and his dance partner Azumi Oe, who's like this incredible Buto dancer and like lighting specialist, an incredible artist. They performed there. Anyway, it was like started at 5 p.m. or something and went until like 5 a.m.
Just amongst the garbage.
Yeah, and
need a tetanus shot for that show.
It was packed,
What?
It was like
awesome.
Packed.
That's so old school in the best way possible.
Yeah, like I didn't come to New York like looking for that. Like, I don't care. I'm not like nostalgic for like the loft scene or anything.
Yeah.
I'm not like wanting that, but
you
just so happens I've kind of like fallen into it since I got here. My first studio I was at the Navy Yard before the Navy Yard got flipped.
That's what Alan was telling me. He used to play with you guys there.
And then moved to this warehouse where Nathaniel Morgan built this studio. And then when they tried to kick me out of there, basically, like went to battle with them and got the current space that we're in a little down the block at Bush Terminal, in the admin building there, which is kind of run down, falling apart on the waterfront. And guess what? Everything's follows you. Like Bush Terminal now, they just dropped $500 million into it. It's like all built up, and I'm sure they're kicking us out the door again soon. But
crazy, man.
But yeah, so I don't know. Maybe we got a long way from it, but that's where the name Blight Music came from.
Yeah. got one more question for you. Total another U-turn, but it's about another vocalist, and I'm just totally interested in this person. And when I realized you played with him, I was like, oh shit. Lauren Benedict.
Oh yes.
Very unique vocalist, musician, amazing. Yes. And Alan and I were checking out your Passwords album with him.
Oh yes.
Yeah. How did that come about? Like what? Just explain that one to me. It's very unique.
Well,
I'm intrigued.
Okay. Okay. I'll answer that question after I just say that, Lauren's another example. We live in an age where like more and more consolidation is just ever increasing, and like the people at the top are demanding like increasing conformity. And it's funny, like social media is like such an integral part of the world now, and it too demands like extreme conformity, even though there might be like a wide range of stuff on it. The process for getting it in there is the same. Everyone has to like waste their fucking time, like spending so much time like making their content and like putting it there. The place it's consumed is obviously extremely restrictive, and it's all consumed in the same way, basically like this. Mm-hmm. And the behavior that it demands is like really, you have it. You don't really see results on it unless you like really commit to it. And that's your time that you're giving to it. And no matter how much it does for you, you're not gonna get that time back. It's really puts a monopoly on what how you live essentially, and how you structure your life. The true originals, I feel like, that I have come in contact with, of our age, of course they're like well known amongst the circle of people who are really into this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But they're not more broadly known, and it's like they can't be. It's like not allowed almost. And I mean, Lauren Benedict's an example. He's like blowing up, I think, a little bit in terms of like, because there's this jazz niche in the algorithm, and people are like really astounded by like what he can do.
Yeah.
But still, his audience is like tiny, actually, if you want to just do the numbers, And I mean, I'm talking about, when you're talking about like American like mass culture, back in the day, even the avant-garde had a bigger reach.
Yeah.
It's been really like winnowed down, and then also the market's flooded with garbage, and like a lot of times like not the best is elevated to the top for sort of political reasons, like be it identity politics or just like politics. Mm-hmm. But I mean, Lauren Benedict is like a total original. Do you know anything? Do you know about him?
I don't know much about him, honestly. I've just like overconsumed him on Instagram.
I met him in the Bay Area when he went to University of Chicago. His parents are top-level classical musicians, like Cleveland Symphony, Chicago Symphony, I believe, and maybe his sister too. And he's the black sheep of the family who didn't study music at all.
Is he an engineer?
He's a physicist. He's a theoretical nuclear physicist, and he's the black sheep. He didn't study music, but he grew up around incredible musicians at rehearsals, and he has a musical mind. If he had like studied music and done it, he'd probably be way more successful at that, even though he's done great in physics. But in physics, he's just like a working physicist, so that's a huge accomplishment. But
a nuclear physicist.
Yeah, at Lawrence Livermore Labs, the biggest U.S. like weapons laboratory, But in music, he probably would have been a superstar, and maybe you still will be, Lauren. But he went after University of Chicago. I think I have this right. He went to do his PhD at UC Berkeley, where he was in the same program as Vijay Iyer before Vijay Iyer dropped out or switched to become a music and did his PhD, I think, or something, got a degree in music at UC Berkeley. But Lauren, when he was at Berkeley, met Steve Coleman, who came to Berkeley for, I think, a year and was giving a class for a year.
Yeah.
And Lauren didn't play any sort of music or sing or anything. but liked Steve Coleman, and I don't really know how that transpired, but basically Steve Coleman saw that Lauren could sing. I was like, you got to develop that. And so then Lauren taught himself by ear on his commute to Lawrence Livermore Labs in his car, which is like a commute from San Francisco, probably had an hour and a half each way, probably every day. Taught himself to sing, and he has like an incredible ear.
Yeah.
And he's probably the best. I mean, I don't know. He's one of the best scatters ever.
Yeah.
And he really sings the changes and has really incredible phrasing, and he sort of invented this like these phonemes or something, this vocabulary of sounds that he uses that sometimes have comic results, but they really flow. And he's just so. Anyway, I met him in the Bay Area, and he's kind of one of those people. The first time you hear him, you're just like, "Whoa!"
Like, where did you come from? Like, you're an alien. Like,
and it was like that, and it's really swinging.
Yeah,
it's really swinging.
It's amazing.
And so I loved that. And we had a band in the Bay Area, actually with Matt Nelson and Nate Brenner, who's the bass player for Tune Yards, and Eric Vogler was in the band, the guitar player from the Bay Area. Who Eric and Lauren Benedict, he wrote the song Shoo Shoo that's on the record Blight Music. They wrote that when they were under Steve Coleman's influence. And yeah, Lauren and I had a band called Blenderhead in the Bay Area.
It's a great name.
Thanks. My brother came up with that one a long time ago. He was just trying to make up. No, I think my brother said he was going to name his first kid Blenderhead, but he didn't have any kids. And then Lauren, his like time was so good. And we both wanted to get better. So we started practicing duo together after Blenderhead didn't happen anymore. And for a long time, for many years in Oakland, we practiced duo kind of like once a week, drums and voice. And it was really hard because there's no one. There's no chords and there's no bass. Like it was a real challenge to keep the form. We would play standards together, and we did that for a long, long time. And so then around, before I was going to move to New York, I told him that we should document it, and so we made a duo record, Passwords, which almost no one has ever heard.
Yeah. We did some digging. Well, Alan and I we're both nerds, and I'll never forget the first time he's like, "Look at this guy, watch this." And it was one of those things where my ears couldn't comprehend what was going on. I thought he was singing in another language.
Yeah.
Until I realized he wasn't, and so
it sounds like that kind of.
Yeah. Very cool. You have such a vast experience of different types of music, different people, all over the world, literally. So it's
not that vast, but I wish it was more vast.
I think. There's always more to do.
It's enough at least to work with for now.
Keep you busy.
Yeah.
So your new album, Blight Music, where's the best place for people to get that?
Well, Bandcamp.
Okay.
My Bandcamp, if you search Sam Ospovat Blight Music, you'll find it. Or if you go to Sam Ospovat Bandcamp, it's there. There may be also copies at Downtown Music Gallery if you're in New York, but I haven't confirmed that the distribution did its job and got them there. But there will be records there after this week, because I'm going to take some there to make sure that they have them.
Make sure it's
but
there.
Basically, if Bandcamp, because then I recoup some of the money from making the thing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Right? Can't wait to check you guys out on Thursday.
Yeah, I hope you make it to the show. That would be great.
Yeah.
We need some people there.
Yeah, thanks again for coming all the way out, and appreciate you sitting down.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please visit birchgrove.io. It's the home base for our record label, Birch Grove Media. You can buy a vinyl record or a digital album and sign up for our newsletter where you'll receive notifications about future events and releases. Also visit podfuelmedia.com. I'm one of the owners of this company, and if you like how this podcast was produced, we do that for our clients: audio, video edits, syndication, consulting, and startup for a new podcast. So book a call with us and we'll get your podcast going right away. You can also go to buymeacoffee.com/birchgrovemedia and leave us a tip if you'd like. Thank you very much.